vision's great. Now visit's great job not letting the best player beat you.
This one crushed. Out to right field. And it's going to be out of here. Pennsylvania will go for Trevor Stefanik. Sends him to Williamsport.
With the 37th pick of the 2023 MLB Draft, the Detroit Tigers select Kevin McGonigal, a shortstop from Monsignor Bonner High School, Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania.
2 balls, 2 strikes to Bryce Harper. Suarez delivers. Swing and a drive. Left field. It's deep. It's gone. Yes! And it is gone!
Yes!
It is bedlam at the bank as Bryce Harper has put the Phillies on top.
Are you kidding me? Oh!
His 10th career home run in the postseason. And he may never hit a bigger one.
What is up, Delaware County, and welcome back for episode number 56 of Delco Baseball Now. My name is Brendan Ricciardi. Ben Thorpe could not join us today, but we are back in studio. Feels good to be back. Last 2 weeks we were doing it over Zoom, but we are back in studio today. And we are fresh off of a Bonner walk-off win versus Newman Goretti. That happened about, I think, 15 minutes before I got in the studio. So this is kind of all going off the fly here. I kind of like the approach of just getting right into what happened most recently and then kind of starting at the beginning. So this was an exciting game because there was a lot of action in not a lot of time. So Bonner started that game off with a solo homer from Quinn Bryan and an RBI ground out to go up 2-0. They let up a bases clearing double in the top of the second. Then virtually nothing happened until the bottom of the 6th inning when Bonner tied it up. I believe Irv Fisher had he had a single, he stole second, and then he came around to score to tie the game up. And then Irv, who else but Irv would walk it off in the bottom of the 7th inning, and that's a big win for Bonner because they were 4-1 in the PCL. And Newman Goretti was 5-0, and they go out there, they beat him. They now hold second place because even though they have the same record, they have the tiebreaker. So big win for the Bonner boys, and we'll get into all of the best storylines from this week of action. Want to give a quick shout out to our new City Connect t-shirts. If you haven't seen them yet, go check them out online on our website. We have a store tab where you can go. We got one for every single team in Delco. I think my favorites are probably, as a Strath Haven guy, I like the design for the Strath Haven one, but I like the Green Machine Bonner one. I think the Kelly Green looks good. Of course, I like the Play for AJ Springfield ones. I think we've got probably like 5 or 6 of those ordered, so all that money's going to the AJ Grande Scholarship Foundation, which you can also donate to at Springfield High School. And we got a bunch of good shirts. I think we got over 60 orders, which is awesome. Just to be able to see, everybody supporting us, because that helps us pay all of our staff, and to be able to see the brand out there is pretty cool. But last shout out here for our Little League team over at Media Little League. The boys are on a winning streak now. The Delco Baseball Now Blue Jays. We got mostly 8 and 9-year-olds, I think. They're 1-0 in games that I've been there, so I think we need to keep going, showing our support for the guys, and hopefully bring home a title. As I was telling Ben, I have never won an in-house title at Media Little League. I played there from when I was probably like 4 or 5 till I was 12. I never won, so these guys are my last hope, and I'm going to sponsor a team until I finally win one and fulfill that childhood dream. I mean, I won a national championship last year. I still can't think about anything else other than the fact that I still haven't won that Media Little League title. But let's get into the action for this week. So we're going to start off with the game of the week, and that is presented by 5 Star Hiring. Now, as we've mentioned on the show before, 5 Star Hiring is a trusted teammate of both employers and student athletes. Whether you're a business looking to add the best talent, whether you're a student athlete looking for corporate opportunities after you graduate, or a coach that just wants to help prepare his team for success at the next level, reach out to 5 Star Hiring. It's 5starhiring.net, 5 Star Hiring on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram as well. They can help you, they can help your team or your organization as a whole. James Grugan, great guy. He just genuinely wants to help people in the best way possible, and happy to have him on board. And I know, he's a Ridley guy. We got a bunch of Ridley guys on this Bonner team. So let's talk about our first PCL game of the week. And the Bonner offense was just fantastic. I think in the week before, they went 5-0. I think in every single game, they'd scored at least 7 runs, I'm pretty sure. And, they kept it going, against Carroll. They were a little slow to get going. Carroll got the lead early, but once they got going, they did not stop. They had a couple big innings. They really, as much as I want to highlight one single hitter, I can't, because the entire team produced in that game. I think at the very least, maybe 8 out of 9 starters had a hit. Nobody had like a monster game, but everybody just did their part, moving down the lineup. Corey Sheridan had 13 strikeouts in the game. There's another game where, similar to the offense, he wasn't bad. He just started a little slow, but as the game went on, man, he just kept picking things up. We had him hit 90, 91 in that game on the gun. He's an NC State commit, only a junior, and it's going to be very interesting to see if the PIAA allows him to be eligible for the state playoffs or not, because if so, this Bonner team, that's made the state semis 3 years in a row, looks primed to have another deep run. So Bonner went 2-1 this week. They lost a game to Conwell Egan, probably the surprise team in the PCL so far. I don't think anybody really saw them having the type of success that they did. It was a walk-off wild pitch in that game for Conwell Egan to improve to, I think, 4-2, 5-2. But another good week for Bonner. They were bound to drop a PCL game. Years like the 22 year with Kevin McGonigal, where they go 12-0 in the PCL, that doesn't happen very often. So don't take that for granted. A PCL championship is still absolutely in sight here for these guys, and you'll hear me say it a million times, but to be able to see them battle it out in the playoffs for the right to hold that plaque is something that every conference should do. So let's move on here to our best Central League game of the season so far. So we had a Lower Merion team that was in second place, and they were 5-2, and a Strath Haven team that was 6-1, and they squared off on Thursday at Lower Merion for the right to be in first place in the Central League. Now, as we mentioned with the PCL, they have the playoffs. The Central League does not. So this game, could eventually be looked at as the Central League championship, because should Lower Merion and Strath Haven finish with the same record like they have right now, both at 6-2, they will get the that trophy will go to Lower Merion because they won the head-to-head tiebreaker. So should they finish with the same record, they will win it. And so they're theoretically a half game up now, if you want to put it like that. But this was an outstanding game. This was Central League baseball at its best. I mean, two teams that they were on their third game of the week, and both teams had pitchers go 6 shutout innings. Isaiah Negron for Lower Merion, he's a Lincoln U commit, 6 innings, 0 earned runs, 6 Ks, which I wouldn't, I would say is, expected from him. From Rob Matei making only his second Central League start of his career, going 6 innings, no earned runs, 9 strikeouts, just 2 hits allowed. That was definitely, I guess if you want to say surprise of the game to see that. But, I had commented something where I'm like, I really wish we could have got to see, Lower Merion ace Van Wilner is going to East Carolina, and Strath Haven ace Luke Dancona, who's going to Boston College, square off. But this was apparently the pitcher's duel that we didn't even know that we needed, and it was fantastic. And Lower Merion ended up winning this one on a walk-off single. Nick Draggett, a freshman, might add, got the win for the Aces. I believe they had a leadoff walk from Toby Myers, sack bunt over to second, base hit to make it first and third, and then a walk-off. It was weird. On the video, I couldn't tell if it was a single or a sack fly. Either way, it was deep enough that they knew the game was over. But it got the job done, won the game for the Aces, a team that has only won one Central League baseball title. That was in 2005. Obviously, more known as a basketball school, with Kobe Bryant. I don't think that's much of a stretch to say that they're generally known as a basketball school. But this team has what it takes to bring home a Central League title, and I would like to think that their vision's even higher than that. Maybe a deep district run. They got a little taste of it last year when they took on they beat Neshaminy in the first round. Van pitching that game was fantastic. I believe they lost to, I want to say, Springford, which is a very, very, very good program year in and year out. But they got a little taste of it, and now they know what to expect. So very excited to see what comes for the Aces. They lost a tough one on Wednesday to Marple. That was in extras, but they beat Harridan. It was funny. All 3 of their games this week were walk-offs, whether it was good or bad. So Brody Slensky won a rivalry game. I said on the last show, I can't say the word rivalry. It's just my brain doesn't allow it. So a rivalry game against Harridan. Brody Slensky won on a walk-off single. Then they lost to Marple on a walk-off. And then they come back and they beat Strath Haven on a walk-off. So it's safe to say the Aces are the best show in town in terms of pure content right now. And as for Strath Haven, this is it's a tough loss, but they're 6-2. They have an elite pitching staff. I would probably argue, at least in the Central League, I think the best 1-2-3 combo. I still think Lower Merion with Van and Isaiah might be the best 1-2. But Luke Dancona, and I want to apologize to Luke. This whole time I've been saying Luke Dancona because it's D' Ancona. Apparently it's just Dancona this whole time, and I would partially like to apologize, but also not, because you waited this long to tell me, so that's kind of on you. As someone who's been getting Riccardi or Ricciardi my whole life, I feel for you, I understand, and won't happen again. That's all I have to say. But Dancona has a .77 ERA in his 27 innings. Caden Schuster 1.16, and Rob Matei is a .88. Like, it sucks that they lost. The Bats, struggle to get going. But when you have 3 starters like that, you're going to be in most of the games you play. They beat Ridley on Monday. They won a good one against Garnet Valley on Wednesday. So I think, they might be a little internally worried about the offense. But overall, I think they're still in a good spot. Let's talk about the surprise team of the Central League so far, and that's Haverford, because Haverford went 3-0 this week. They beat a Marple team that's number 7 on our rankings. They beat Radnor, who was red hot, won a couple in a row. Then they beat a Pencrest team who was 6 in our rankings, and they kind of handled Pencrest. We'll start at the beginning of the week here. In that Marple game, Jimmy Boyle, sophomore by the way, 6 innings, just 1 hit allowed, 1 earned run, 9 strikeouts in a 3-1 win versus Marple. Fast forward to Friday, Will Hoffman, 7 innings, no earned runs, 4 hits, and 4 strikeouts in a 6-0 win versus Pencrest. Not to spoil anything, obviously they'll be making the power rankings this week, but that was definitely the team, probably along with Pencrest, that I think we were just the most wrong about. Like I wrote that it kind of just felt like a rebuilding year. They lost a lot of guys from last year, like Ethan Mahan, Joe Barnes. I know I'm blanking on one of their other pitchers that got a lot of innings last year. But, this was a team that we basically said in order for them to have the type of season that will get them in the playoffs, they need some of the young guys to step up, and they've done more than that. This team has such a good balance of, like, the young kids that are playing out of their mind. Like, Shane Durkin is probably the best hitter on this team, one of the best hitters on this team, and he's a sophomore. I mean, Cam McCormick's a freshman, and he's up there in all their stats as well. And Jimmy Boyle, carrying the load as the number 2, number 3 guy on the mound for them has been massive. And, you look at the rotation as well. When you add Boyle, Hoffman, and Gavin McClafferty, they give them a lot of solid options. But then you got your veteran guys, like Will Hoffman, Will Tamar at shortstop. He's heading to Misericordia, Nick Alvanian. Like, this is a very well-rounded team, and one that, we definitely misread, and they started off hot, then they cooled down, and then now they're red hot. So if they're able to keep this streak going, man, this team's playing with a ton of confidence, and I think that it's a very, very good likelihood that they not only play in the playoffs, that they host a playoff game, which is a huge leap from, I think they were maybe 6-10 in the Central League last year, and they're 5-3 right now, tied for 3rd place with Pencrest. So massive win, massive week for those guys. I think that would be a fun team to have in studio, because I feel like they're, when it comes to the Delco baseball scene, especially the Central League, kind of always a team that just flies under the radar, especially with another school with the same exact first and last name, the Haverford Fours, right, with Haverford School right there as well. So very, very excited to see what the Fords can keep cooking. Well, as mentioned, we're going to go right into the Haverford School, because it was a nice week for them overall. Like, listen, they lost to Malvern Prep. They lost handily to Malvern Prep. But here's the thing. So does everybody else. So does everybody else, okay? So I really don't think we can hold it against them when Malvern is, if they won their game today against Penn Charter, which they were winning the last time I checked. Yeah, they're up by 10 to Penn Charter in a game that was very close. They scored how many runs? Yeah, they scored 7 runs in the 5th. So they do this to every team. I think they're 17-1. So losing to them is, almost expected for any of these teams, and that's, not meant to be disrespectful towards these Interac or other Delco teams. It's just how good Malvern is. They're a perennial nationally ranked team, and you just have to have you got to beat them on one given day in the playoffs, and that's it's like the U.S. versus the Soviets mentality. Like, hey, they might beat us 9 out of 10 times, but we're gonna win that 10th. So they lost that game to Malvern Prep on Tuesday. They rebounded with a nice win over Germantown Academy on Thursday, and this was on offense, it was kind of a two-man show. Connor Scanlon, he's a shortstop committed to Fairfield. Zach Fuscaldo, they both had 4 RBIs in this game. Scanlon went 3 for 3, had a homer, a double, and drove in 4. Zach Fuscaldo had a huge bases clearing double. I believe it was 7-6 Haverford in the 6th inning, and he cleared the bases to give them some insurance. So that's a big win for them. They improved to 3-1 in the Interac with that win. And it's an interesting time for Haverford because you feel very good about the fact that as of right now you're the second best team in the Interac, but you wonder, how you're going to be able to close that gap against Malvern, because now, you get to play them again, so you'll play them twice, and if you tie them up then things get interesting, but, just trying to figure out a way to get up to their level is going to be the challenge for those guys, and they have a great pitching staff, but yeah, right now Malvern's just in a league of their own, and that's going to be the question for them. But overall, still a good week for Haverford. We'll talk about them in the power rankings and the games of the week coming up soon. But let's move on here to a very funny result of the game. Here we had Cardinal O'Hara. They scored 17 runs against Roman Catholic in this one. It was actually a football score. It was 17-10. Just an outrageous result. Excuse me. And when you talk about what this O'Hara lineup is the top of the order has just been so unbelievably good this year that it feels like every time A, they start a game, or B, they start an inning with those guys, they're going to be successful. Because they started off, Brennan Till at the top of the order has been an on-base machine. He's hitting 500. He's got an 1148 OPS, just an on-base, machine. I feel like I'm overusing machine, but it's just like every game, it's the same thing. And Kevin McGuire has been up there as well. He's hitting about 400, 1134 OPS. Those guys have just been getting on base, getting each other in. It's just ridiculous. And Noah McMullen, who is probably the ace of the staff, has also hit 400 with a 979 OPS on the year. For an O'Hara team that's 4-2 in the PCL, we talked about how in 2022 they went 2-10. In 2023 they went 5-7. Now they're starting to kind of keep building up, and it doesn't happen overnight. But they're at a point now where they're 4-2 in the PCL. I think they're pull up the standings real quick. I believe that has them good for 4th place. I believe, yeah, 4th place, and they'll be playing Conwell Egan, who they're tied with, on Monday. So that'll be a really good measuring stick kind of game to see where you compete, because they've won some big games. They beat Judge, they beat Wood. I mean, Judge is your reigning champ of the conference, so it's hard not to be happy about that one, even if they've kind of taken a little bit of a step back. We also got to talk about Kevin King, because Kevin King has came in and has really been a good addition to the rotation. It's not the biggest sample size, but I mean, in 10 innings, he has a 197 ERA. He's really, showed that he can be that second guy. Patrick McManus has also been a nice addition to the rotation. I think the question for them was going to be who steps up with Pat Ahern going to college. And it's kind of been a team effort. So good to see the Lions competing, and halfway through the PCL season, they're in a playoff spot, and they're in a spot to just have the bye week right now. So very exciting. This is the team that I wouldn't say we wrote off, but when they started 0-3, I believe, in the Central League, maybe 0-2, but either way, they started slow in the Central League, and they have came back with a vengeance. This is Radnor. So Radnor, right after we made Conestoga the number 8 team on our rankings, Radnor just goes and blows them out, 10-0. I don't know whether it was at Radnor or at Stoga, but to go out there and beat them up like that, 10-0, was super impressive. And, their only loss this week was to Haverford, so kind of hard to be, upset about that because that loss looks a lot better when you look at what Haverford's been doing lately. So they lost that game. They bounced back. They beat Ridley 8-1. That's 2 very, very convincing wins. This is a team that has 3 elite starting pitchers, which is crazy because their number 2 starting pitcher, Danny Armstrong, has missed time with a broken hand. I don't know if he'll be back soon, what his timetable is. But, Austin Havertine has been one of the best pitchers in the Central League this year. He's got a 1.62 ERA in his 26 innings. He's got 31 strikeouts. Still just a sophomore. We saw him last year as a freshman have I think just a good season. I think he was in like the 3s or 4s ERA, but he's really taken that step up. We had him on the gun at 87. Not a stretch to think that he could probably be around 90 next year in his junior year. Which will make Radnor a serious playoff threat. And the crazy thing is, they kind of are right now. They've had some injuries, but Kyle Miltenberger's back. I think Matt Zacholski's out for the year. He was telling me about like all the injuries these guys have faced. I wrote it in the preview article where I'm like, I do think that this team could contend for a playoff spot, but I feel like in 2025 and 26, like there's a real window for them to go out and try and win the Central League. So I think right now at 4-4, they're only 2 games back of the lead right now, but I still think that next year and the following year are when they really, really have a good chance. But just going down this rotation, we talked about Austin. Ryan McWilliams has been excellent. 2.06 ERA in 17 innings, really, really good stuff. And Danny Kellis, 2.93 ERA in 15 innings. So they're a team where they got a lot of talented bats, young talented bats that if they can kind of keep growing throughout the year and putting up games like 10-0 and 8-1, they're going to be a tough team to beat. They're going to be a team that could really spoil someone in the playoffs with this strong starting pitching. Nobody's going to want to face those guys. That's all I can say. And they got some good burner accounts showing their support for the boys in our comments. Some a little odd, but overall, they do make me laugh most of the time. And also, if you're listening and you're one of these burner accounts, know that I truly do want to keep your comments up, but like, just understand where the line is, where like some of them like I kind of have to delete, but for the most part, we find them funny. We love that the streets are talking about Delco baseball, and I know that the Radnor fan section is very excited with the way that this team has turned their season around so far. All right, let's get into the power rankings for this week. We have another new sponsor to introduce. Welcome in McDevitt Hitting Lessons to the brand here. So we'll tell you a little bit about them. Jason McDevitt, he provides individual and small group hitting instruction for players ages 8 to 18. He also does some weekly hitting clinics as well for players ages 8 to 13. He's been a hitting instructor for the past 6+ years. He played at Westchester. He's also coached a lot of really good travel teams in the area, most recently the Top Lumber Futures team, the 18U level this year. Some of the best players in Delco were on this team: Danny Stickney, Gavin Brown, Brian Cawthorn, Fred Jordan, all guys that have been on the show. Maybe a bit of a correlation there. Aiden Pearson. He put his own kid, Tyler McDevitt, 6, which I think is hysterical. Just wanted to make sure that he got the big names out there in front, which I think is hilarious. But other guys like Troy Neff, Noah McMullen, Zach King, they're located in Glen Mills and Swarthmore, so different ends of Delco that you can get to. You can find them on Facebook at McDevitt Hitting Lessons. Instagram is the same name. Phone number 610-842-7193. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the graphic. It has the logo for him at the bottom there. So make sure to give him a call if you want to get the swing right, whether it's some in-season struggles or getting ready for summer ball, whatever it may be. Give him a call. All right, let's get into the rankings here. As you can tell from the graphic here, Bonner stays at number 1. They lost that game to Conwell Egan, but we didn't really feel like that was enough to knock them down. Egan's looked like a pretty solid team. They beat Carroll pretty handily, as we talked about. They beat Newman Goretti and a previously undefeated Newman Goretti. So we felt like that was enough to keep them in that top spot. Moving up To number 2, we have the Haverford School. They lost some non-conference games this week, but they won the important ones. They lost that game to Malvern, but Malvern's obviously a very, very good team. They rebounded. That was the big thing. They rebounded. They took down Germantown Academy. They're sitting at 3-1 in the Interac. I think they overall have to be pretty happy with where they're at right now. All right, for the first time this year, we have a Central League team that is not Strath Haven as the highest ranked Central League team, and that's because Lower Merion, they beat them on Thursday, and obviously, we can't use that. Oh, well, they should be higher because they beat them for every single case. But in this case, when you have two teams with the same conference record and their last games were against each other, you kind of have to go with the team that won that game. So Lower Merion gets that 3rd spot. The rotation's been fantastic with Van Wilner, Isaiah Negron, and Justin Spiegler. Very well-rounded group. The Bats, as we mentioned on the show, are good. It's not an elite, scoring double-digit runs a game offense, but they do their job. They are very fundamentally sound, and they have a lot of good team at bats. So Lower Merion takes that 3rd spot, which sends Strath Haven down to number 4. And I think Strath Haven, obviously after that performance, they were a little frustrated with the offense. But you're coming off a year where you're 14-2 in the conference. You're 6-2 this year. You have one of, if not the best pitcher in the Central League, in Luke Dancona. The lineup is. Last year they struggled in the regular season and came alive in the playoffs. So I think that they're in a good spot, and there's still half the Central League slate left to get that lead back. All right, number 5 here we have Episcopal. So it's been a kind of a weird stretch for Episcopal where they got in the win column in the Interac with a huge win on Tuesday against Germantown Academy. They lost to Shipley and Springside Chestnut Hill, and they beat Conestoga on Saturday. So a bit of an odd week for them. It wasn't necessarily something that really warranted being dropped down very far. They went 1-1 in their conference games. They beat a Conestoga team that was in our rankings, but it was kind of just more what we saw from Lower Merion move them up as opposed to, we needed to drop Episcopal down. And these guys have a lot of very young, talented arms. Hunter West and Mike Schaefer are 2 of their biggest contributors on the mound, and they're in 9th grade for Hunter West and 8th grade for Schaefer. So very, very bright future there for the boys in blue and white. As mentioned, we'll see them and the Haverford School in a top 5 matchup on Tuesday. All right, moving on here. This is not their first appearance of the year, but this is definitely the highest a team has been ranked when they weren't in the rankings the week before, and that's Haverford. Haverford jumps in from not being in to number 6 on the list entirely. And, when you go 3-0 in the conference during a week and you beat 2 teams that were on the list the week before, it earns the spot. So Haverford jumps in. They've gotten great production from their young guys, Cam McCormick, Shane Dirk, and Jimmy Boyle to go with the vets, and they look like a really, really solid group, a team that has it seems like the pitching depth to potential have a nice little run in districts, even host a playoff game perhaps. So Haverford jumps in, and naturally they had to jump over number 7 Pencrest, because in the last game when these two teams played each other, Haverford beat them 6-0. So we kind of had to give Haverford that one, but Pencrest, they went 1-2 this week. They lost a great game with Ridley. They lost that game against Haverford. I believe they beat Upper Darby in their one game. So I think this is the first time this year that they've really had to, in the conference, battle back from real adversity. They lost that game to Strath Haven, our game of the week, but that was a close game. Dancona was fantastic. Gavin Brown was fantastic. And same with this Ridley game. Gavin threw 8 shutout innings with 1 hit. Just didn't go his way. So Pencrest falls down to 7 there. Garnet Valley's at 8. This is a team where the pitching has definitely been better lately. That was the biggest concern for this team. Of course, right when the pitching starts to kind of clean it up a little bit, the offense kind of trails off a little bit. In their last 2 games, they scored 3 and 4, which we have just from these guys have come to expect a little bit more. But I think a well-rounded group is probably for the best. They lost to Strath Haven. They beat Marple on Thursday. The Springfield game is tied at 8 after, I think it was either 7 or 8 innings. So that'll be something where they have to come back and do that one another time. But as of right now, that's just a game that's still going on. So they were just 1-1 last week. And last but not least, their first entrance of the season, we got Cardinal O'Hara. So this was a tough one. We were definitely weighing some options. Marple, Radnor, O'Hara, and we decided to go with O'Hara for the main reason of we were looking at conference record, and O'Hara is 4-2 in the conference, and Radnor and Marple are both 4-4. And honestly, a real deciding factor was how well O'Hara played against Malvern Prep on Saturday. When we were originally planning on doing this, we were thinking Radnor and Marple for that last spot, and then Saturday morning O'Hara plays a really good game. They only lose 5-4 to Malvern. They're up 4-3 in the sixth. I mean, Malvern is a incredible program, and to be able to compete like that with them definitely had us being like, okay, I think this team deserves to get their shot on this list. They went 1-2 this week, but they beat Roman Catholic in their only conference game. So I know that the record says 1-2, but when you're kind of looking at what you did as a whole, you lost to a good Hatboro Horsham team, you lost to a great Malvern Prep team, you beat Roman, you scored 17 runs. And I think they are very happy with where they're at. Brendan Till, Kevin McGuire, Noah McMullen carrying the top of that order there. The pitching has been definitely better than I think we expected. So halfway through the PCL season, we'll see how that carries on. But once again, shout out McDevitt Hitting for sponsoring the Power Rankings. Excited to have him on board. All right, now let's get into our players of the week. Now, similar to the Power Rankings, we kind of had to wait until the week was over in case anybody had a big-time performance on Saturday. Since the rest of the show was recorded Friday afternoon, we got to pop back in and let you know our players of the week for this most recent week. So let's start off with our hitter here. We got Bonner catcher and Wingate commit Quinn Bryan. Quinn homered twice this week. He went 5 for 10. He had 4 RBIs as the Friars went 2-1 this week. Really great performance for him in the middle of that order. I think he's mostly been hitting third for these guys there, and just a star-studded lineup overall. I mean, honestly, we probably could have picked a couple different people from this lineup just based on the week that they all had. Irv Fisher with that walk-off as well, but we felt like Quinn was a good choice. He had a homer in that Newman-Goretti game to dead center to kind of get the scoring started, and an eventual walk-off win for the Friars. Moving on to the pitcher, we got Chris Kimmel, and it's rare for a pitcher to be able to earn this spot without technically recording the win in the game, but Chris went 8 2/3 inning, which at the high school level, just saying that out loud is nuts. 8 2/3 innings, 0 earned runs, and 6 strikeouts. Him and Gavin Brown were both spectacular. I remember watching that game, I believe it was on Wednesday, and just kind of thinking to myself, like, all right, I feel like whatever team wins this game, like, this pitcher is probably going to be the one that gets the nod. Corey Sheridan also had a great start. I think it went 6 innings at 13 Ks and 1 earned run, but we just felt like the fact that we got a guy pitching into the 9th inning in a game with like the pitch count was just incredible. So congrats to Quinn and Chris for bringing home the awards this week. And let's talk about the game of the week. We're heading to the Interact. We got Haverford School taking on Episcopal, top 5 matchup. That game will be at Episcopal on Tuesday afternoon, the nicest Delco baseball field. This is not a debate. If you want to argue with me, don't, because you'd be wrong. It's a major league quality field. It's unbelievable. And I'm so excited to get out for that game and check these guys out. Probably, it would be cool writing a top 5 rivalries in Delco baseball. That would be, that would be a fun article. And these guys would be either top or at the, very, very top of the list for sure. So I would imagine the pitching matchup. So Ian White Jr. pitched on Tuesday against Malvern, so I'd imagine he will get the ball this Tuesday at Episcopal. For EA, I'm not sure. It could be Logan Carell. It could be Hunter West. They've been doing a lot of kind of by committee type games to have their approach there. So let's see. So Hunter West started on Tuesday, and I think he also started on Friday because he only went 2 innings. So I think it's I think it's a good shot that we see freshman Hunter West get the ball. Devastating changeup from him. Fastball was around 86. Ian White Jr. upper 80s. Nasty slider. So that should be a fun matchup. But got a couple of other good games this week. We got Bonner and LaSalle. And see, the thing is, I was considering game of the week for this, but we just had Bonner, and LaSalle's not Delco, so that feels like a game that I would probably want to go to, but wouldn't make it a game of the week. So that's for first place in the PCL, because Bonner's 5-1, LaSalle 6-0, but if Bonner beats them, that tiebreaker then goes to them. So something to keep in mind there. Some other good Central League games. We got Garnet Valley at Pencrest on Monday. that is a game that, would be huge for Garnet Valley to get. They're sitting at, I think right now it should be 4-3. And winning that game would have them leapfrog Pencrest going to third place. So big game for them. Interboro at Chichester. If Chichester wins this game, the Del Val runs through them. And I was told from Dylan Johnson, one of our writers, that they've won 44 straight Del Val games, which is just ridiculous. They're not doing it in as dominating fashion as last year when I don't think any game was within like 6 runs. But I would like to see Interboro. If Interboro wins this game, that last game will legitimately, most likely, be a Del Val championship. So let's make this a series here. A game that before the season we probably didn't think was going to be this big was O'Hara and Conwell Egan. Both, I think, sitting at 4-2 right now. Both, kind of flew under the radar, but that's a very, very fascinating game. And listen, one of these teams will be 5-2. So Pencrest, Lower Merion, a tough week for Pencrest for sure. Pencrest will travel to Lower Merion on Wednesday. They'll really be tested this week to see if the adversity will get to them or not. A very, very fun Saturday slate, if you ask me. We got the Haverford School and Bonner will be playing at Bonner on Saturday during the afternoon, and then Marple at O'Hara on Saturday night under the lights at Marple. So 2 really fun games to spend your Saturday. I believe Haverford and Bonner is at noon, and Marple at O'Hara is at 6. So get out, hopefully some nice weather, and enjoy those games. All right, that'll wrap up our high school coverage for the week. Now, something we haven't really had much time to do lately is we're going to do some college talk here. Huge shout out. It sucks Ben's not here for this one, Elizabethtown alum, but huge shout out to Pencrest alum Quentin Perilli, who is, it's crazy even saying it out loud. He is now the all-time home run leader at Elizabethtown College, and he's only halfway through his sophomore year. He's got 22 home runs, which is just absurd. Just a ridiculous amount of talent from this guy. I'm very curious to see if he ends up hitting the portal. And the model has been set because Ben Watson was a center fielder for Elizabethtown, and he transferred straight from Elizabethtown to Virginia Tech. Just an absurd jump, and it's not impossible that a guy like Quentin could make a jump like that. He's got I think 11 home runs this season. He had 2 last week. 6 for 13, and man, just what a story for him. Seeing him in the Delco League, I always thought he was good, but I will admit that watching him play, I didn't know he was like this good, because it was after, it wasn't this summer, it was last summer, so it was after his, freshman year it was after his senior year of high school that he was playing for Aston Valley. Let's move on to another team in the Landmark Conference. Roman Tazi, he's a Carroll alum. Of course, we had him on the show. We've had Nico on the show. He threw a complete game shutout, a 9-inning complete game shutout with 10 strikeouts in 41 innings this year. Roman has a 1.31 ERA. Just a fantastic year from him. He started at Barton in, it's either North or South Carolina. I want to say North. At the D2 level, just wasn't a fit for him. Came home to play with the next guy on this list, Sammy B., but a 1.31 ERA in 41.1 innings is ridiculous. And Sammy Berman, he's a French Central alum, but he's a media guy. He was 7 for 14 last week. He had a homer and 5 RBIs. He's driven in 20 runs in 26 games. Same thing with Roman. He started at he actually started a Division I program at Hofstra. Wasn't a good fit for him. Ends up with Catholic with his guy Roman, and they're doing big things. So I think we can definitely get a little more into the college scene once playoffs come, especially if there's some local teams playing in it. But let's talk about a guy at the D1 level. We got Mark Quattrani. He was 6 for 13 at the plate with a double. He's hitting .350 in his freshman season over at Cornell, which I just found out their team name is the Big Red, which is kind of odd to me, but they got a bear as their mascot, so good for Mark. But he's a super talented guy. Last year he would win the Delco Player of the Year in any year that there wasn't a literal first-round pick in Kevin McGonigal. So it's kind of tough to compete with that. But Mark's doing good things. Getting any playing time as a freshman catcher at a D1 school is super impressive. And I think they've had him at DH a little bit as well. He played third base in the Delco League, so maybe he'll get time around the diamond there. Move on to Mike Hooker. He's a Ridley alum. He's a DeSales pitcher. He went 7 shutout innings. Most impressively, he did it with 1 strikeout. Really just relying on that defense there. I love it. He has a 2.63 ERA in 37.2 innings pitched this year for DeSales. I think we'll be seeing him in the Delco League this summer. Kellen Davis. Now, it's tough for relief pitchers to get love here because, they sometimes their production goes up and down depending on what the team needs. But Kellen's a pitcher for Old Dominion in Virginia, and in his last 16 appearances, he has not let up a single run, earned or unearned. In his last outing, he faced East Carolina, shut them down. That's a great program. 2 innings pitched, no earned runs, 5 strikeouts. He's got some great lettuce, too. Great flow on this guy. Another Penncrest alum doing great things. Next up, Sammy Benz. Sam Benvignotti. He's a Carroll alum as well. He's playing at Penn State Brandywine. He's had a big week, 10 for 21. He had a homer and 10 RBIs. He's hitting .463 this season. He started at, I believe he started at Chestnut Hill, Division II program there. Has found a new home at Brandywine. He had a cycle earlier this year, so huge year for Sammy Benz. We got a dual threat here for 2 reasons. These guys both went to Springfield High School, and they both went to they both go to Williamson Trade, and they both hit 3 homers last week. So we got Cody Grande. He has 5 homers in 15 games. Last week, he was 7 for 18 with 3 homers and 8 RBIs. We also have a guy who I wasn't too familiar with, Josh Illing, 7 for 20, 3 homers. He has 4 homers in 15 games for Williamson Trade. So good to see those guys getting to stick together after they played at Springfield and play in college together. I always like when high school teammates, go to the same high school and go to the same college. Like we'll get that with Quinn Bryan and Irv Fisher for Bonner at Wingate. I'm sure there's more that I'm blanking of. Logan Nelson and Shane McDermott from Garnet Valley both play at Alvernia as well. Last on this list, this guy, he went to Haverford High School. He went to the Haverford School and Haverford College. Nice week for Johnny Fleeter, 6 for 10 at the plate. He had a homer and 3 RBIs. At the time of our research last week, he had hits in 5 straight games. So good for Johnny. I believe he's playing shortstop for them. But that'll wrap up our college recap for the week. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We'll have that recap every given week. So make sure you're following us there to stay up to date with that. Last thing we will do here to round up our show is we got the minor league season starting. So huge shout out to Bonner alum Nate Furman, who hit his first professional home run. It was a 407-foot grand slam for the Lake County Captains. He's in high A with the Cleveland Guardians. Now, anyone that's been following Nate for a long time knows, elite professional hitter. Power's not really in his game for the most part. He's a smaller guy. He's a second baseman, but he got into that one big time. And if he can add a little power to his game, man, that's going to be huge for his development as he tries to make his way up to Double A this year. Billy Corcoran, Malvern Prep guy, but he's a Ridley area native. He went six innings against the Tri-City Dust Devils, 9 strikeouts. I wrote down 1 earned run. I thought it was a shutout. Let me double check that real quick. But a fantastic start for Billy in high A with the Hillsboro Hops over in Oregon. He's probably about as far away from home as you could possibly get for a team. But 6 innings, 1 earned run, and 9 strikeouts in his last performance there. So super encouraging stuff. Out of all the Delco guys, Billy is the only one who was undrafted and is playing professional baseball. So very cool to see how he has kind of grinded that out from his time at Pitt and just kept working his way up in the Diamondbacks system. We got Tom Kane. Tom was drafted out of Maryland. He's an O'Hara guy. He has a 1.93 ERA through 4 appearances this year. He's got 8 strikeouts coming out of the bullpen for the San Jose Giants. That is the high A affiliate of the San Francisco Giants. So good for Tom getting off to a nice start of the year. I know last year the strikeout numbers were there. The ERA wasn't quite there, but nice to see that the Giants have been working with him. He was kind of a guy that always had the stuff, but wasn't quite able to put it all together and know exactly what he was doing with it. But that's an encouraging start for him. Last but not least, we got Brendan Little, Conestoga alum. He is not allowed to run in 7 appearances this year. in 7 2/3 innings. I would probably argue he is the closest to making the big leagues, also because he's the only one out of our 13 guys who has pitched in the big leagues before. He had made his debut with the Cubs back in August of 2022. He's now with the AAA Buffalo Bisons in the Toronto Blue Jays organization. So very excited to see what he can do over there. All right, last but not least, before we wrap up the show, we got to give a quick shout out to the Carpenter Cup. If you're a Delco baseball player, now I should note this is only for Central League, Del Val, and Sun Valley players, because the Interact has their own team and the PCL has their own team. So if you're a Delco player and you want to compete with the best players in Delco against the best players in the area for a chance to play at Citizens Bank Park, I highly recommend trying out for the Carpenter Cup. You can go to the link in our social media bios to find the sign-up sheet. You can find it on our account as well. You can reach out to Paul Bogosian, the former Haverford coach. The tryouts will be Saturday, May 18th at 7:30 at Haverford High School. You can, I believe, sign up until that Wednesday, so I'll keep pushing out the sign-ups. I'm definitely not still salty that I got cut when I was a senior. I will say, though, that I don't know if it's a Carpenter Cup rule or just a rule. Like, I was already committed at that point, but, they were only taking 10 seniors, and just due to the tryouts, they ended up taking 8 senior pitchers, so they could only take 2 hitters, 2 senior hitters in all of Delco. So, unfortunately, I did not fall for that, but I'm still a big supporter of the Carpenter Cup, and, I would love nothing more than to cover a Delco baseball game from the bank. So please do me a favor and make that happen. But another good week of Delco baseball, and we're really we're starting to see where teams are. We got about a month left of the regular season. Teams are kind of starting to show what they can do, and for some teams, you're running out of time a bit. It's now or never to kind of get your season back on track. We have a lot of Delco teams that are currently sitting in the playoff picture. I kind of wanted to wait like one more week, and then we can start looking ahead at some district playoff brackets. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, shout out producer Rob, back in studio where we belong. But as always, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.